in those challenging times, like many other people, you might find yourself in a position where you feel like, I don't want to talk about this with anybody. I don't want to expose this to anybody. Sometimes it's that self-preservation and protection, and sometimes it's our ego. So there's a little bit of both. And we should be praying and seeking, like divine strength and such. And we should process the situation and give ourselves time. A lot of times we lack the courage and the strength and just the sheer, I'm going to be brave. And I think that word gets misused so often in our vernacular that we forget what it actually means. And these are the times when we face the challenging circumstances. That's when we have to be brave. Welcome back, or welcome to the Conscious Investor Podcast, the show where we talk about health, mindset, and wealth building strategies. I'm your host, Julie Holly. I'm so grateful that you're here. I'm grateful it's a Monday. I'm not so excited about our content today. However, I know that I'm not alone, and the experiences that I have are very much part of the human experience, and they're not unique to me, although the circumstances themselves may be slightly, nuanced and unique to me. Challenges are not unique. And that is part of the human experience. So before we dive on into this week's topic and conversation on what do we do when life goes off the rails, what do we do when life happens and things like that, before we talk about that, I want to let you know that there are only 7 more weeks until the Conscious Investor Growth Summit. I'm so excited about this Growth Summit. When I planned the summit, I didn't know that I would be in the circumstances, in the challenge that I'm in right now. And so it's really interesting to me to see how long before any of this is materializing, I was just inviting and curating this speaker lineup. And now I can see, and I'm hearing chatter in the streets about 2024 was rough for a lot of people. A lot of people are going through challenges right now. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this growth summit is going to just be such a great reboot station for everyone. And remember, this isn't a place where we're working on soft skills. We're not working on the hard skills. We're not doing, here are the mechanics of investing. Here's how you invest. That's not the purpose of the growth summit. The purpose of the growth summit is to grow, right? And we want to grow in our health, in our mindset, and in our wealth building strategies. So we are talking about all 3 pillars right there. It's a very holistic approach. What's so amazing is that we have experiences taking place every single day that every ticket holder is a part of. And then we have experiences that are just for VIPers, but it's really such an extraordinary opportunity. There's so much value packed into these tickets just by nature of what you get. Every single day, you're going to have some type of fun experience in addition to hearing just such a stellar powerhouse speaker lineup. So head on over to consciousinvestorgrowthsummit.com. And please pick up your tickets today, because the tickets are going to sell and I don't want you to be left out. And trust me, you don't want to be left out either. All right. Well, we're going to dive into, today's topic of, what happens when life goes off the rails, what happens when we face our challenges, and really what came to my mind as I was thinking about how do my current circumstances relate to the human experience in general, right? To you. And so I was thinking about, have you ever had one of those times where you have been put in a position where you know something and you're not in a position, you're not allowed to speak about it. Now, sometimes this can be really fun. For example, recently for Christmas, right? I'm sure you bought some gifts for whatever holiday you're celebrating. A lot of people, even if they don't, celebrate Christmas, they still buy gifts at that time. It's kind of fun. And so all that to say, we bought our son this necklace, and it was just shh, didn't tell anybody about it, didn't share it with little miss, didn't want anybody to spoil it. And so it turned out to be a really fun surprise. But as I was reflecting on it, there are very few times where we're actually hiding, I guess it is hiding, something that is private because it's a fun surprise. Usually we're hiding something. We're not disclosing something. We're protecting something. You see, we could put a lot of different words here. And we're doing that so that we're taking care of a tender part of our own lives. Or maybe we are trying to check a legal compliance box because we need to make sure that what we say is going to be allowed to be said in general. So let's get into some actual examples and things like that, right? I mean, think about marriage. Now, Super Ed Steve and I, you've heard him on the show recently. I mean, we're really honest, but guess what? We've been through really hard, challenging times, right? And in those challenging times, like many other people, you might find yourself in a position where you feel like, I don't want to talk about this with anybody. I don't want to expose this to anybody. And part of it is your ego. Like, I don't want people to think poor things of me or my spouse, even though they're driving me crazy right now. And I don't know how this marriage is going to last. Sometimes it's that self-preservation and protection, and sometimes it's our ego. So there's a little bit of both. And guess what? If you have been married longer than 10 years, I'm actually thinking you don't have to be married that long to realize sometimes you're like, oh my gosh, what did I do? Right? And that's fine because it's a human experience. Another human experience is, when we go through grief, and a lot of people have lost loved ones, or including pets they've had for years. I've seen a lot of loss taking place over the last years with the fires taking place down in Southern California, with everything that took place with the hurricanes on the East Coast. There's also a lot of grief that's taking place there. And sometimes when we're in grieving, sometimes we just don't want to talk about it. But sometimes, even though we're deeply hurting inside, we don't want to expose the world to that. We're like, golly, I don't want to be the drag. I don't want to drag everybody down. And so we just go through it alone. So candidly, conscious investor, the last few months, I've kind of been in a cave of myself. By myself, not really by myself. There have been some people in the cave with me, but it's been interesting. I've been trying to process how my world got turned and flipped wrong side out. And I've been trying to figure out legally how I can discuss this in a way that isn't going to have any negative ramifications, right? Because we want to always be compliant and do things in the best way. And I wrote this down, and I actually sent this, and I'm going to refer back to the newsletter that I sent out last Friday because it was articulated. I articulated a lot of what I'm going to share with you this week in this mindset episode, because not everybody is receiving the newsletter. So we'll put a link down in the show notes so that if you're not already subscribed to receiving the newsletter, you want to get in on the newsletter, because I write those newsletters, and a lot of times they're really relevant to your life, right? It's not just about investing. Remember, it's a holistic approach. But back to this, right? As I wrote down there, I've quietly wrestled with fear, doubt, anger, disappointment in the hours that I should be sleeping. I think that that's relatable to a lot of you. I've quietly questioned my own competency and qualifications. I've quietly been scared. What would happen to the reputation I've worked for? And although my circumstances are different, I believe it's difficult to be a human and not have an experience like this. Sometimes life goes off the rails, but that doesn't have to mean you're at the end of the line. Yeah, so let that sink in, conscious investor, because right now you might be experiencing turbulence in life and a challenge in life. And it's really important to remember that, sometimes you get off the rails. That's not the end of your life. Literally, it does not have to be the end of your life. There's still more life to be lived. This is just part of the experience. So, in all reality, what does the conscious investor, what does Julie Holly do when these things happen? And I'm going to share a bit about what happened. Don't worry, I'm going to get into the details, not into all the details, but I'm going to get into high level details for you. Some of the things that I do, like the very first thing, and I'm sure this isn't going to come as a surprise, but I pray and I process a situation. A lot of times when we face turbulent times, when we face the challenges, the Goliaths of the world, right? A lot of times we just have to simply surrender and accept this is beyond my control. And guess what? Most things are beyond our control in all reality. And we should be praying and seeking, like divine strength and such. And we should process the situation and give ourselves time. I also go to wisdom from fellow human beings, right? And I'm not just going to everybody. And this is where sometimes we see those people on social media platforms, and they're the ones, and they are, you know, they're the complainers, right? The Debbie Downers, this happened, that happened, this happened. And conscious investor, we don't do that. We're not trying to complain or commiserate. We're trying to move forward in an effective way, right? So that we can walk with integrity and walk with character. And so in this process, I choose to seek out wisdom, but not just from anybody, from people who've walked the path before me and they have come out right side up, right? Like, I don't want to go and ask, for wisdom from somebody. In fact, they would have no wisdom if they've maybe walked the path before me, but they're continuing on this loop, experiencing this over and over and over again. That means, hey, you haven't learned the lesson quite yet. So that's not who I'm going to seek wisdom from. And then I face the circumstances bravely head on. And I think that right there is part of what makes it really challenging for a lot of people, is that a lot of times we lack the courage and the strength and just the sheer, like, I'm going to be brave. And I think that word gets misused so often in our vernacular that we forget what it actually means. And these are the times when we face the challenging circumstances. That's when we have to be brave. You don't have to be on a battlefield with bullets and missiles flying past you in order to have to be brave. You might have to be brave when you step into your boss's office. You might be brave when you get into the car for a long drive with your spouse that you've been having a disagreement with on an ongoing basis. Like, that might be brave right there. You might be brave when you are an alleged whistleblower for something because you understand and you've been watching something taking place and you know it's not right. And you know that you're the person in power that's going to help protect people because you're calling something out for what it is, right? And so we have to face things in a brave way. So what's going on? What's kind of off the rails and such? And this is so hard for me to talk about because it's still so tender, even with processing and things like that. And over the years, you've heard me talk about investing. You've heard me talk about my investments. I have taken pride. And that is a fact. I've taken pride. We haven't missed distributions. We've been on time. We've been performing well, even despite, all the crazy things that happen in the world. And all of that happened until boom. Now, I'm going to be very clear. We have two separate portfolios with two separate partner companies. Our assisted living facilities are slaying. They're crushing. They're doing so well. I just love how we're serving. So I'm going to be very clear. This is for our multifamily portfolio. And for those of you who are passively invested, either in our investments or with other people, you have probably seen some turbulence happen in the multifamily sector. This is not unique to us. However, it's just happening to us, and it is quite the blow. And how things happen is also quite a blow, right? You've heard me say on the podcast over the years, like, I've built Three Keys Investments in a very patient, intentional way. And other people, they were, putting partnerships together with anybody that they met at whatever event and jumping into deals left and right. And that wasn't how I chose to build my partnership. I knew from the very get-go, this is something that I want to be able to look in the mirror and know that I'm making great decisions and I'm bringing other people's capital into these investments, which means there is a substantial burden of responsibility to perform and to follow through. And that's not something to be taken lightly. And so I have, the year-long process minimum where I want to get to know somebody. I want a potential partner. I want to get to know their character. I want to see how they show up, at events or in person. How do they interact with people? What's the type of conversation they have? Because their brand is also going to affect my reputation, and my brand's going to affect theirs. And maybe I'm not a good fit for theirs. I talk about faith a lot. It's so much part of my life that maybe somebody doesn't want to partner with me just because they don't want their brand associated with my openness with all of my life. So in that, I was wise. I was wise in how I selected my partners. And people trusted me. People trusted my judgment. Many of you listeners, they trusted my company, Three Keys Investment, with their investment capital. And these are burdens of responsibility that I don't take these lightly whatsoever. And everything was going well until life happened. Things weren't going well. And my favorite exclusive partnership in the multifamily space, they're the operators, they're boots on the ground. They run the whole show for our multifamily investments, and they faced internal challenges. And that's what I'm going to leave. I'm going to leave it at that high level because it's really unnecessary to really get into any of the weeds. It wouldn't serve you well. It would sound good and it would feel good because I know that we all like to know that, like, what really happened, what was it, but it doesn't serve people well. And I want to model for you that it's good to share things in a way that is going to support people in how they go through things or in what they are currently experiencing or what they might experience in the future. But we generally don't need to get into the details because the details are going to be so different for everyone's unique situation. But if one of your partner companies involved, and there are two of you, if they start struggling with internal challenges, then it's going to affect everyone else. It's going to affect the co-GPs. It's going to affect the limited partners, the LPs. It's going to affect the staff. It's going to affect everybody. And it's important that we communicate all the difficulties, all the victories. And then there are the times where you have to just incubate and you need to sort through the debris. You have to painfully piece things back together. You have to create a path of progress. And then you have to start taking action. And that was really challenging for me to be very quiet about something because I'm very transparent. This is a first opportunity I've had to be able to discuss this with you. And I'm taking it, right? I'm always trying to be transparent with you because that's one of the core values of me, of the Conscious Investor, of Three Keys Investments, of all of it. And so I was finally positioned to be able to communicate with our limited partners about this. And then now I'm sharing this with you as well. And I want you to know that I don't take this lightly. Like, moments like this take so much strength and courage. And so this right here, this is my now, things are, life's happening. And it might be yours. This might be your now also. And so why don't we talk about what's actually right now in this moment getting me through? There are a handful of things. One, I know myself. That is the deep work that I have chosen to do over many years. I haven't hidden things from myself. As transparent as I am with you, I am transparent with myself. And remember, we've talked about ego in the past, and ego is not false humility. Ego is not only looking at the areas where you struggle. That's an unhealthy ego. If all you can see are the areas where you need to grow, your ego is unhealthy. Okay. A good, healthy ego can say, I'm good at this over here. This is a strength of mine. I shine in this area. And so I've gotten to know the spectrum of my capabilities, of who I am, what works well for me and what doesn't work well. So I can see, okay, I'm going to need support in this area, that I'm going to go get wisdom over there. I know that I can execute well over on this, right? So knowing myself is really actually been a really powerful asset in the situation. And so that's one thing that's getting me through. I'm going to just double down on that and say that when people around you have challenges and have struggles, you might have a couple friend, they've been together for years. You guys, get together and, go out to dinner, do, boating, whatever it is. And maybe they split up. And so for some people, that can make a really complicated situation. And when a partner company, again, going back to I don't choose partners lightly, like these people are very important to me and I care about them. And so it's interesting navigating in how do you hold space and how are you able to hold space for everybody involved instead of becoming biased. And quite frankly, it'd be very I initially was very biased, and then was reminded I've been tempered over the years, and it's like, okay, hold space, gather information, be a bridge, be whatever you can be to everyone, because there's a lot of anytime that there's a challenge like this that comes with pain. And so how can we bring healing to the situation? What encouragement can we bring to the situation that is going to support it and help elevate it? I didn't realize what an asset that was, right? It's underplayed. The cheerleader. We always just think of cheerleaders being like rah, 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 and, turning cartwheels and flips and stuff. And we don't realize like we need cheerleaders. We need encouragers by our side. And so I want you, so knowing yourself, knowing your capabilities, and that happens to just be one of mine. I am an encourager. And so it's been neat to see that shine in this situation. I also know about myself that I stick to things. And the past challenges have tempered me and prepared me for what I'm dealing with right now. And in all reality, this challenge is preparing me for a challenge I will face in the future. So I want you to maybe consider whatever it is that you're facing right now. Think about what has prepared me for this. This is actually one of the elements of resilience mapping that I work through with clients, right? And so you want to think about what's the backstory here? What's the backlog that has prepared me for this? And we don't have to future predict what we're going to be prepared for. Kind of challenging to do that. However, we can know that we are right where we need to be, and we don't have to doubt that, as uncomfortable and miserable as it might be at any given moment. So I also know that a third thing that's really helping me get through this is that every single challenging circumstance that I have faced, I have walked through, has grown my faith so much. And it's also left me with so much beauty in my life that I think that the ashes kind of seem like a gift. Like there's beauty that comes from those ashes. And it's like, wow, I mean, look at this treasure trove I have now. I wouldn't have it if I hadn't experienced the fire. And so there's a certain understanding of, I know that there's something good, almost like there's a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. I am ready for it. I don't want it. And I know that it's going to be really painful, but that's okay. Let's go. It's going to be okay. I'm also making sure that I am staying vertically aligned with God. Like that is my source of strength, hope, peace, love. And that right there is really the equilibrium. And when I wasn't sleeping at night because all of this was weighing so heavily upon me, and it was kind of mine to bear alone in a sense. And I don't mean alone, but like in a very extremely private way. So it's nice to know I'm not alone. And in that time of sleepless nights, that was where I was reminded, like, I'm not alone. God is always with me. And it's my choice to lean into that or not. God is never leaving me. And guess what? God loves you. He's not ever leaving you either. Even if you don't share my faith, guess what? I believe God's like hanging out with you and rooting for you. Okay. Kind of like a parent. And I always think about this, when kids are little and, they're about 2 years old, they have mobility, they'll run away from mom and dad, but then, and mom and dad can stay put. And then little toddler will run away and maybe kind of get spooked, a little nervous. And then the toddler will run back to mom and dad's legs and just like hug or huddle right there, right? And so a lot of times it's easy for us to do that where we can say, oh my gosh, I know the source of strength, hope, peace, love, joy, everything. I know that source. But I'm just going to go wander over here a bit, right? And so, I'm just going to go worry a little bit. I'm just going to go pout or commiserate, or slowly and surely, if we're willing, we can realize and just be drawn back to that magnet of God and just say, like, oh, actually, way, way more comfortable over here and way more peaceful. And I am also very proactive. I'm an action taker. And I think you know this, right? And so I'm figuring out what is it I can do, what is it I cannot do, and how can I move forward in a way that is going to be helpful and effective. All this to say, conscious investor, I just want you to know that whatever challenges you are facing, you are not alone. And I mean, you're not alone in multiple ways. One, many people are facing challenges. If we polled people, even the people that are like, yeah, today's a great day, best day of my life, guess what? A lot of times, people like that are super optimistic, they're probably going through a challenge, but they have a really good outlook, a strong mindset, right? And so I want you to just consider most people are going through a challenge. If you are not in a challenge, you probably just got out of a challenge or you're headed into a challenge. It's just that cycle of life, and it shouldn't be hated. It is for us, it serves us. And so you're not alone because it's part of the human experience. You're also not alone because there are people who care about you. And if you feel like somebody doesn't care about you, just reach out to me. Reach out to me. Let's talk because I care about you and I'm rooting for you. And I also want you to know that as you look at your challenge, you are not singled out. It wasn't like, that human being needs to learn this lesson. We're singling this one out. It's not like this. This is not Hunger Games or something like that. Okay. So, like, you didn't draw this short straw. This challenge isn't like you being singled out for any specific reason. This challenge that you are walking through, the challenge that I am walking through, they are for me. They are for you. That is for us to grow us, to improve us. And I want you to know I'm rooting for you. And guess what? I'm rooting for myself. I want to encourage you. Root for yourself too. Cheer yourself on. Encourage yourself. We can rely on outside support, but we also need to learn how to stand by our side and cheer ourselves on and say, we got this. In fact, I was doing this as I was working out this morning. I was on my bike spinning, and I was pushing myself hard. And I kept telling myself, okay, you got it. Go, 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 go. And I was just like in my zone. And fortunately, I was alone in this room doing this. But like, get in your head, like, let yourself cheer yourself on in what it is that you are facing. Be your advocate. Okay. I guess I should say that a better way. Advocate for yourself, conscious investor. Cheer yourself on because you live with yourself 365 days a year, 24/7, for as long as you walk the face of the earth. So hang out with yourself a bit and get to know yourself. It'll grow your confidence. It'll grow your ability. And I just want to encourage you, if you're going through something, I love the book of Psalms. Man, there are a lot of situations, quick, easy, and I find them pretty encouraging. So that's what I've got for you this week, Conscious Investor. Life happens, challenges happen, but they're not the end of the line for us, not for you, not for me. It's an opportunity, and the beauty that will come from the ashes is going to far, far outweigh all the ashes that we have to walk through. I guess fires we have to walk through so we get ashes. I'm working on it. Thanks for your patience with me this week, Conscious Investor. It's been emotional creating content around this for our private investors, for the newsletter, and for you. But I'm grateful for the opportunity, and I hope that this supports you. And I hope that if this resonates with you, then, let me know. Share this out with somebody. Tag me on it at the Conscious Investor Podcast or at Happy Julie Holly. And please share it with somebody because the world is full of a lot of people going through a lot of challenges, and we all need some support and encouragement. All right. Conscious Investor, live in the fullness of your freedom.